Hi, Panzerkip.
Well, hey there, big boy. Random crits. For many TF2 players, if not the vast majority, these two words are about as triggering as going to a feminist convention dressed as Donald Trump. You've seen it in countless matches as the kill feed shows the glowing red icon that shows any amount of skill completely invalidated, and the bimes spam out how the one-hit RNG wonder is fair and balanced. There's a lot to say about crits, with plenty of fact and fiction to go around, but what can generally be agreed upon is that random crits in TF2 suck. Now, most developers would see the kind of outcry a feature like this causes, and, after some consideration, would likely remove this troublesome feature. After almost a decade, though, Valve has yet to even alter their random crit system. Still, with a Pyro update looming on the horizon somewhere, to come sooner or, much more likely, much later, some people seem to have a strange hope for some drastic improvements, and some have even taken the time to knuckle down and show Valve what they think it needs to do. Like our edgelord and savior, Zenomite, who dropped a bombshell video explaining why random crits should be removed from TF2. It has a lot of good information, and Zeno makes one hell of a case, so I'd highly suggest you go watch that video before continuing forward to better understand this video. Link will be down in the description. Now, if you've watched it, or just did and are returning this video, I'm sure some of you might think, okay, so you're going to tell me the same thing Zeno did, that random crits need to be removed. So why are you even making this video? He said the same thing, why do I need to watch what you're saying? Well, because I don't quite believe that random crits should be removed. Now, I agree 100% with Zeno that it is a broken, bad system, but I believe the problem lies with the system, with the execution of the concept, rather than the concept itself. So, I'm going to explain what I think is wrong with random crits and how it could possibly be fixed. Now, if you were to ask the average person, the average TF2 player, or in my case, if I was to ask the hipster god who will probably crucify me for this video, what is wrong with the concept of random crits, you'd probably get a response something like this.
RNG-based systems have no place in a game of skill. I'm sorry. Because right now, in the current casual game, it's more kind of pushing people towards playing the game competitively, but it's not really doing anything to teach them about playing the game competitively.
There we have it. The one word in that really sticks out to me is competitive. Now, while I have absolutely nothing against competitive players, I feel like there's this disconnect between the idea that there is a disconnect between competitive and casual, that there is a difference and that there's supposed to be a difference. Casual is meant for people who don't have the time or the desire to really get hardcore into the game to the point of, knowing, they're not the people who are going to care about the frames and all the DPS and all the numbers. They're not going to care about team comp. They're playing to have a good time. Now, there are people who do play casual and play it very seriously, who play on a competitive level, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like a lot of people don't understand that the main idea behind casual is more or less just to dick around. Now, if we were talking about competitive, of course, remove crits. Of course, absolutely, that makes absolute sense to provide a more consistent and viable and just easier to track system, as well as not having any stupid bullshit like random crits to completely throw off a competitive match. But in a casual setting, crits kind of exist to kind of provide those little spontaneous moments that, if you get them, they're going to be funny as hell. If you get hit by them, they're going to be infuriating as hell. But they're kind of meant to, well, heighten the highs and lower the lows. Now, again, this is by no means saying that the current system is good. And whenever I say height and highs and lower lows, I'm sure if you've seen Zenomite's video, you understand that that's more or less directly quoting the original developers, who stated that the random crit system was, despite popular belief, actually meant to punish the bad players rather than give them equal footing. It is the good players continue doing good and the bad players continue doing badly and eating shit and crits. The way the random crit system works is it starts at a baseline, and depending on how much damage you've done in the last 20 seconds, or by other means, if you're the engineer or medic, aka healing done and support and whatever, you get a higher crit chance. I don't remember the exact numbers there in Zenomite's video. I believe for melee weapons, it's from 12 to 20%, or 12 to 15, and from melee, it goes all the way up to 60%. Feel free to double check my numbers. I don't get way too in the numbers too much, but that's about how it works. And that isn't the best system because, again, it is not meant to help new players, and it is not meant to be an equal system. It's, if you're doing good, here's just a little something extra. That way everyone else who isn't as good as you just has to eat shit and crits. Which is a terrible thing. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing because, well, it it completely removes any ability for anyone who isn't doing as well as the person getting the ass ton of random crits to do well, and especially considering it, since it's based off of damage done recently. I mean, you know, get a random Crockett and boom, your damage just goes through the roof, you know. Random crit on a minigun, I mean, your damage, but increasing damage thus increases your chance of getting crits, and so when you get crits that increase your damage, more crits. Yay, it's not fun. It isn't. And it's way, way too easy to abuse. So something has to change, right? But the question is, what would be a better system? Would no crits be better, or would changing it? Let's see what Zeno thinks.
So knowing that crits may not be removed, what sort of crit system would you consider to be much more acceptable? Well, to be genuinely honest, TF2 is indeed moving in a more competitive direction, or trying to, despite the developers having no idea what the fuck they're doing. The initial developers of TF2, the ones that we don't have now, I'm assuming, were much more focused on the social aspects of TF2 than the, currently more gameplay-oriented version of TF2. That's why the Nemesis system exists, or the domination system, I guess. That's why taunts exist, yada yada. It gives you a reason to form relationships, however superficial, with the people around you, and to customize your character in the way that you want to better express yourself to the people around you, which is cool. That's really fucking cool. But the game is moving in a more competitive direction, or Valve is trying to move the game in a more competitive direction. So based on that, random crits seem to be removed fucking entirely.
Whoa there, Zeno. Hold your horses there. See, where I come from, if something's broken, you at least try to fix it before you decide to toss it in the trash entirely. Now, one thing you've noticed that Valve hasn't tried to do is fix the crit system. It hasn't been adjusted, so why not try adjusting it first before we go straight to removing it, especially with the myriad of problems it would cause. I mean, consider all the weapons that are balanced around random crits. I mean, wouldn't that cause a problem?
Yeah, actually something I didn't mention in the video is that removing random crits on regular weapons would comparatively give weapons that have granted crits a buff, which is, again, a big issue, and I don't trust Valve to address it at all.
And that's entirely right. Crit granting weapons would become almost necessary in a sense, because without random crits, there would be no way that any of the base weapons would be able to amplify their damage short of granted crits, meaning that weapons that provide granted crits, or just any sort of attack buff in general, would become much more needed and reliable as, for example, the Frontier Justice versus the stock shotgun. The reason the Frontier Justice isn't as viable as the stock shotgun right now on an engineer is because having 6 shots where any one of them can random crit gives you more shots, more consistency, plus the ability to do a basically one-hit kill on most classes, is much more versatile than having less shots but being able to store up crits for later that are all very, very dependent on multiple factors. Then there's things such as Kritzkriegs, and buff banners. That kind of stuff would be all over the place because, again, without random crits, you would need a different way to augment your damage output. And those are the only ways. And while in a way that would be better to an extent where people would be using more skill-based ways rather than a random number generator to augment their damage, it would still become a problem because eventually people are going to complain about just being killed by crits in general and then damage boosting in general, because that's still an inconsistency. That's still not, this does, why did this pill do 300 damage instead of 100 damage like it should at base? Crits. Eventually, it's going to lead to other problems. And then you consider weapons that their only downside, or one of their downsides, is no random critical hits. If there's no random critical hits, then that's not a downside. There's no downside to a weapon anymore. Weapons like the Hafsatoichi, where its ability to gain health no longer has the downside of not being able to have that random burst of damage for a one-hit kill, because everything's consistent now. How would you rebalance that? And I mean, I'm sure the community could come up with ideas and everything, but again, the problem is getting Valve to actually do that. And really, that's the biggest problem here, is we don't know that Valve will fix anything, so the easiest solution is to just remove it.
Valve is worthless. Like, they genuinely are. Their structure, the company structure, is awful for getting things done. They aren't working optimally. It's just dumb. It's all dumb.
And that's right. And again, that is really the big problem, is, I mean, it's been almost a decade into the making of TF2. Random crits have been there since day one. They've been a feature, one that sometimes I enjoy, one that sometimes I hate, and one that a lot of people in general just absolutely hate. I think it's because of the execution. Some people hate the concept. That's your opinion. But ultimately, what is the big problem here is that Valve in all of this has done nothing. They haven't removed, they haven't altered, they haven't even, said, okay, what do you think should be done? I mean, we've all thrown our ideas out there and everything, but Valve hasn't taken any input, and I mean, that applies in so many areas. And I think we have to kind of keep hammering this, because I don't know what else we can do otherwise than say, Valve, get your shit together. I mean, if we just stop giving them money, well, then I mean, I don't know what the hell to do. If we keep paying them, then they're just gonna take our money and fuck around with it. If we stop giving them money, then they're just gonna say this isn't profitable and kill it. So, I mean, what do you do to get them to get their shit together other than just riding their ass until they get their shit together? It's really frustrating, because ultimately we can't do anything ourselves other than say this is what we would like to have done, and hope to God or Gaben or whatever it is that you believe in, the flying spaghetti monster, that someone hears it and something gets done. So I think that's why we've seen a lot of YouTubers and everything put out their ideas, their predictions for the Pyro update, why we've seen Zeno put out his why random crits should be removed video, because we're all hoping in some way that maybe we might get heard somewhere and that something can be done. And my side is I want us to see us try to at least fix the system before we throw it out entirely. And that applies to a lot more than just random crits. I want to see systems like the community browser. I want to see that get fixed. I want to see the current meet in your match system. I want to see that working because it has potential to be fixed. I don't want to see us like just go back to just quick play. I would love to see quick play return, but I don't want to like us throw away just the meet your match update because of how terribly it's been handled. I think it could be fixed, and I think it could be something good. And I think there's a lot of things that could just, if Valve would maybe listen to some input and actually put some work and everything into it, that they could probably fix it and they could do some really, really amazing stuff. Something needs to put the fire back in Valve to make TF2 great again. Now here's the part where I give my own input on what I think would be a better crit system. Because I'm not going to sit here and say, we need to fix this and try to tell everyone what to do, but not tell anyone what I think they should do. I'm not going to try to say, here, figure this out. So I came up with two ideas, and they're fairly simple ideas, because if you try to overcomplicate it, you're going to end up with a messy system, and that's not something I really want to happen, because that leaves it open for holes which would cause it to end up being very fucked up. So the first idea is fairly simple. What exists right now is a system that has a minimum crit rate, but increases the crit rate with damage. I want that gone. I want it to be a low, flat rate. 5 to 10%, somewhere in that range. Just somewhere in that number where there's a low chance that you might get a random crit, and it stays that way no matter what. You cannot increase your chances of getting a crit. Essentially, the only thing you can do is shoot more shots, and you might eventually get a crit, which kind of leads to a problem that kind of led to my second idea. See, there's a lot of weapons that fire a whole lot of shots. The minigun, the panic attack, the beggar's bazooka. Weapons like that which can put out a lot of shots in a very short amount of time, which even on a low crit rate, you're bound to eventually start getting crits. Which leads me to the second idea, which is a little messier than the first, which is give each weapon a specific crit rate. Which would not be, again, it would be a flat rate that would not be affected by damage rate at all. It would be a simple, just, this weapon has this % chance to crit. Which would also, kind of feed back into, okay, everything has a set way it works. There's a set chance that this could happen, but it's a very low chance. So you're not just going to be able to dump out this ridiculously stupid amount of crits, while at the same time, also allowing weapons to stay balanced as they are. This would keep the system, at least within the balance that we have, within a reasonable system, not having to have too many balance changes as would removing crits entirely would. Now, Zeno, what do you think?
So the only crit system that would be acceptable, based on how we want to move the game forward into a competitive direction, would be no crits at all, to provide a baseline level of, this is how much damage everything will deal. This is like, just provide like a baseline level of understanding and actually explain mechanics. Short of that though, like, I guess if Valve wants to just be like, alright, we fucked up with Meet Your Match and we're never gonna try competitive again, I would still like crits removed, because it's really fucking frustrating to die by them, and to get kills with them. It's really not as enjoyable as actually earning it. I guess if Valve wanted to just be like, alright, we fucked up with Meet Your Match, we're gonna remove the competitive mode, never bring it back, because I honestly would not put that back by them either. I would say a system that is much more acceptable would be just to retain it on like melee weapons or something, judging on a purely casual base, but it's still like, it's flawed. It's really flawed.
Indeed, Zeno, it is very flawed indeed. Which is why I think we shouldn't stop discussing this, and we shouldn't necessarily just leave this to, you know, remove crits or keep them. It shouldn't be two sides. There's a lot of facets to look at. So I would like to see what everyone else thinks. Leave your ideas down in the comments. Tell us what you think. Tell me if you agree with me, or if you agree with Zine, or if you maybe like crits as they are and want to keep them as they are. Just, feel free to express yourself and tell us, what's going on in your head and why you think the way you do. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Zenomite for being willing to give me the soundbite that I used in this video. He was exceptionally kind, and just really, it was really nice to be able to work with him. So thank you very much, Zeno. It was an honor to have you feature on my channel. And I look forward to maybe doing more work with you in the future. So, again, thank you very much, and thank you all of you who are watching, and especially those of you who are new to this channel. Maybe like what you see, subscribe, like, and thank you to those who are commenting. Even if you're putting down a hate comment or whatever, at least you're interacting with the channel. At least you're providing some feedback. So I thank everyone for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will try to provide more content to y'all very soon. I am working on the next episode of the Manco Armory, which I wasn't able to decide on the Natasha or Tommy Slav because I wasn't able to get any votes, and I really wasn't sure how to proceed with that. But I have an idea, but I will say I still haven't decided on which one. So this next one is going to be interesting. I also have a few other videos coming out soon. I have a couple other games that I've been playing that I did record that I might put out soon, as well as a talk I did with one of my friends, Fennikk, who is a pyromane. A little bit of a Skype chat that I had. It's a little choppy. We had multiple takes and everything, so I'm still working on it to smooth it out. But it's got some interesting info on what we see in the future of TF2, what would be good ideas for perhaps the pyro and for the heavy, and just in general for TF2. It's a pretty good chat, and once I have it all smoothed out, I will definitely publish that out. Anyway, I think that's about all the update I have on my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.